Okay, next is tailgating. And tailgating involves basically stepping behind someone as they enter into a secure facility. So, someone who comes in from behind an authorized user and gains entry by entering right behind them. Now, the challenge becomes people will tailgate even when they have authorized access to a specific facility. It's just easier to walk in, someone's already opening the door. Hey, hold the door for me, please. You run up behind them and you walk in. But it's very important that from a company perspective, it's educated from across the board, from the CEO on down to each individual contributor, that that is a no-no. Because if you get in the mindset that if someone's running up, I'll just hold the door for them, well, you don't necessarily know if that person belongs there or not, especially if that person is adept at social engineering and they start talking or they pretend like they're on the phone and they're talking about something that may be internal to the company. You hear that and you think, oh, that person must work here, so I'll just hold the door for them. Or they start fumbling for their badge and they have a couple things in each hand and you don't necessarily know what exactly they're doing, but you know they're busy and you can see that they're fumbling for something, so you want to be a good person and you hold the door for them. Well, again, that's a no-no. And, and I know it's kind of terrible to have somebody two steps behind you and you shut the door in their face, but again, from a corporate perspective, we need to do that. We need to kind of forego the manners, quote unquote, and adhere to company policy and make sure each individual person badges in. All right, now there's a secondary reason for that as well, which you may or may not be aware of. Most companies, when you badge in, they keep a record of who's inside. If, in case of emergency, a fire or some type of disaster, and they need to get everyone out of the building, well, security can also then look and say, okay, who badged out? So that way they can tell that there are still people inside the building that haven't badged out. So the proper emergency personnel can go in and find those people. If you tailgate, no one knows you're in there, right? Because you haven't actually logged into the system. In the event of an emergency, you may be left behind, especially if you're not able to get out of the building for whatever reason. So very important to make sure you badge in, not necessarily for just security, but also for personal safety. So how do we mitigate this tailgating phenomenon? Well, we can mitigate it by using such things as man traps, guards, closed circuit TV, and other technical and administrative controls, things we've talked about in a previous video, right? We want to make sure that somebody's actually monitoring and looking at who's coming and going. So whether we have a guard looking at monitors and actually manually buzzing someone into the door, or we have man traps where only one person can go in and they have to actually badge before they are allowed access, or we may have some type of turnstile. So with a turnstile, someone has to use their badge, whether it's an RFID or some type of NFC chip, and badge into that facility. Again, everyone knows you're there now in the case of an emergency as well. So some things that we've talked about previously, whether it's an administrative control or a technical control, but on top of all of that, we have to make sure we have security awareness training. Very important corporate-wide. A lot of times people think it's just a waste of time, but it's important that each and every person understands the role they play in maintaining security throughout the company.